Well, folks, here to give you an update that Minnesota Democrats are jumping into the race to fill Tina Smith's Senate seat that she will vacate at the end of 2026. Notably, right now we have Angie Craig, the Democrat, represents the 2nd Congressional District in Minnesota, says that she is going to really be taking it seriously and looking at what's the best way for her to serve, if you can even call it that, more like, steal from her community and make a decision in the near future. This is obviously referring to that open Senate seat. But if you're new here, drop down below. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you never miss another video from us in the future. So obviously, last week, Senator Tina Smith came out, said she will not be running for re-election. She has been a leech on the ass of society for long enough. She's got enough money, doesn't need to worry about it anymore. Many big names, including Keith Ellison, Ilhan Omar, Angie Craig, Tim Walz, and Peggy Flanagan, have all been thrown out there in Minnesota politics. Now, you take a look between Omar and Craig. They're two very, very, very different Democrats that you're looking at here. When Tina Smith announced she wouldn't be running, Tim Walz came out and said that he's really going to consider running for that Senate seat. And it's been noted that if he were to pick a successor, he thinks that Angie Craig would be the best for Minnesota. Obviously, she is a lot more of a moderate Democrat, relatively speaking. When you're looking at someone like Ilhan Omar, relatively, almost anybody in the Democratic Party is more moderate than that. But just because they're moderate doesn't mean they're not controlled by the left wing. But Tim Walz came out, said that this is something he's going to look at, and Craig is someone who would be a good replacement for the governor's seat. Now, that pissed off and angered a lot of the progressives in Minnesota. They don't believe that she is progressive enough. She is not woke enough. She is not... she's not bought and paid for enough by these progressive activists and these the open door society with the Soros family. But obviously these are two big names. Angie Craig is a top Democrat in Washington. So far in the race, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan said that she's going to run, announced it right after Tina Smith came out and said she is not going to be running for re-election. And now Omar, like it says, one of the most high profile, if not the most high profile progressives in the country, is going to really take a consideration into this. And Angie Craig really throwing it out there that this is something that she could go after. She would not be good for America. She would not be good for Minnesota. She isn't good for America right now. It is not great. And the GOP really needs to take this seriously. They need to figure out this is a great opening for the Republicans in Minnesota to take control of this seat. Because ultimately, I don't think if Angie Craig decides to run for the Senate, I do not think she's going to get the nomination. I think they're going to go with a progressive like Ilhan Omar or Keith Ellison. I really struggle to see Angie Craig winning that nomination to be the next senator from Minnesota to replace Tina Smith. Now, one thing that Angie Craig will have going for her is that she won a swing state in 2024 when most of the country shifted red. It's a purple swing county that she was able to expand her victory of margin in. Her margin victory. Was able to expand it in the most recent election. That is something that could be good for her. Good for the Democrats. But ultimately, I think the Democrats are blindsided. They are going to be blindsided by this. And they are going to walk blindly down the left-wing progressive side of the party. I don't think they're looking to go more moderate as of right now. You even have it right here. She grew from a Caroline Cummins who, with WCCO, grew her margins in the most purple district in Minnesota, says she's considering running. Like that may not be a bad thing for the Democrats, but ultimately, I don't think they're going to go down that path. And now if Tim Walz decides to throw his hat, this guy, whoever Ryan Winkler is, former House Majority Leader, here's the thing, Tim Walz, I think that his failed vice presidential campaign really, really hurt him I think Minnesotans are going to see him differently and treat him a lot worse than they have in the past. He was really exposed on a national level what kind of bumbling buffoon he is. Totally embarrassed himself, totally embarrassed the state of Minnesota on the national level. I think Angie Craig is more competent, though, than him, would be a lot. I think she, as of right now, would be the most dangerous person, or the hardest candidate from the GOP's perspective to go after. Tim Walz, I think it's going to be hard for him. I think someone like Omar or Keith Ellison, that's going to be tough. And now as far as the GOP, what do they have to do here? Really, the reality is they need to find a candidate. Someone like maybe a Pete Stauber. We don't want someone, and I shouldn't say we don't want it. I would be totally okay if we had a Senator Royce White. I voted for him. I think he would be he represents more of what my values are. But the reality is in Minnesota that these are not the values that the majority of Minnesotans hold. And I know a lot of people, and I'm going to get flack for it, and that's fine. But the reality is you try and run a ultra MAGA Republican in Minnesota, they're going to struggle. You know, Royce White got his ass whooped in Minnesota. Let's take a look. 2024 Senate MN. Look at this. He got beat by 16 points. 16 freaking points. My gosh. Are you kidding me? Like that's ridiculous. It just absolutely ridiculous when you look at the 2024 presidential election where Harris only carried the state by, I believe, about 4 points. Yeah, about 4 points. And Klobuchar ran ahead by 12 points. This is in a good year for Republicans. He ran behind by 16 points, which is insane. This is my thing. If we're going to really look at electing a Republican here in Minnesota, we need to be smart about it. Doesn't mean we need to have a pushover. Doesn't mean we need to have a liberal Republican. We don't. We just need someone who's a little more moderate, who maybe doesn't take some extreme, things that can be classified as conspiracy theory positions. I understand, because there are a lot of things that I believe in that would be considered a conspiracy theory. But ultimately, you're trying to win the state of Minnesota here. This is not Alabama. This is not Tennessee. This is not Florida. And this is not Georgia. This is Minnesota, a historically blue state. We're the only state outside of D.C. that voted against Ronald Reagan both times he ran. Only state. No other state can say that. So we got to be smart. The GOP, they have got to be smart. The National Republican Senatorial Committee needs to step in. They need to help recruit a good, strong Republican. Look at maybe someone like a Jim Schultz. There have been a lot of other people who have ran in the past. There was, his name is Ryan Wilson. He ran for state auditor here in 2022. He had the closest margin with the Democrats in his race. Maybe that's someone that you look at. I know Tom Emmer said that that's not something he wants to run for. But maybe that, like Pete Stauber, maybe that's who we're looking at. Maybe a Karen Housley. Who knows? But the national Republicans need to come in. We need to have a process in place. We cannot let state Republicans run this, because they're going to run it into the ground if we let state Republicans take care of this here. So we're going to see what happens. Obviously, Angie Craig throwing her hat in the ring as of right now. I guess not fully thrown in, but come on. She's either going to run for governor or she's going to run to be the next senator. It's as simple as that. It's one or the other. We're going to see what happens. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. Who do you think the Republicans should be running on the GOP side? Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. And as always, like, share, subscribe for more. That is all for today, folks.